well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions you would want us to address quickly? Put your hand up. We are continuing with the rest of our content. Is there any question anybody wants to seek clarity on what we've done so far? Content as well as pedagogy, as well as logistics. What have you? There's anything like that? Any questions? All right. So if some questions come up, then you prompt me. I'm sharing my screen now. I suppose you can see it. I need one of you to read what you see on the screen for us quickly so that we take off. So anyone, raise your hand. Let me call you so you can read. All right. Thank you very much. I see Gertrude. I see Bevan. I see Francis Ano, Vanessa Aqua, Sensu David. Quite a number. So we'll read together. I have a lot of reading to do. It's a new topic. Gertrude, please read for me. Gertrude Obenewa. Hey, I'm still sharing my. Hold on. What's the title? Maybe we can do the title. This is lecture 6. Go ahead.
Problems of philosophy. The problem of certainty. That is synthetic a priori.
Well done. Pronounced it very well. We'll discuss it at our level because our 300 level rationalism students are also doing SAVE, except that they are taking it at a higher level of difficulty. We'll be even doing Kant, his a priori categories and what have you. But you will engage it at a level 200 level. And so don't be too worried about it being too technical. We'll cut it into smaller chunks for you and emphasize the few that you know. Why? Because we've seen Descartes already. I hope to go through Descartes a little bit with you on his question of certainty, the indubitable truth that he looked for, where we saw the cogito ergo sum, we saw his, I think therefore I am, if you translate that, the evil genius argument, the dream argument, limitations of the senses argument, even goes further to prove the existence of material substance and the existence of God from his own existence. He does all of that, Descartes. So we'll try and touch on them a bit, get into the middle part of our discussion. Then we may see some touches here and there of Plato, just so that you get a good grounds of what the problem of certainty really is. So I give you some focus, so you don't confuse the general problem of knowledge, establishing the certainty of claims. It's this question that we are engaging. It's an overlap. This one the previous one feeds into this, but this is a bit more focused. Can there be synthetic truths that are yet known a priori? That's a question of, or the problem of certainty. Can we know some truth that we call synthetic truth, and yet we know them with a priori certainty? That's the problem. It's a major problem in epistemology. So you see that now we are not doing metaphysics, and we are not doing social and political philosophy. We've gone into the area of what? Epistemology, the question of knowledge. I think that even Russell's paper, as we discussed in class and online, straddles metaphysics and epistemology. He tells you that the folks think they are doing metaphysics, the question of what exists, but they don't realize that their argumentation is oscillating, straddling a little bit of metaphysics, then it goes into epistemology, why they're asking about the knowing of what reality. So it's like an overlap. So we saw some epistemology already, but because it was oscillating between epistemology and metaphysics, we wouldn't say that was typically a metaphysical question. But what we are going to do now is purely epistemology, question, or if you like, better still, the problem of certainty. And our focus is what? Is there or can there be a synthetic truth that is known with what? A priori certainty? That's a problem. All right, I need to go on. The problem of certainty. So we are taking it all from the scratch. Please read, quick.
The question of knowledge. What? How? Justification.
So what knowledge is, how do we acquire knowledge, and then how do we ground our claims of knowledge? How do we justify our claims of knowledge? Central questions of epistemology, which you saw in level 100, philosophical questions. When we say epistemology, epistemology, the study of knowledge, logic, study, epistem, knowledge, so the study of knowledge, epistemology, okay, that it is concerned with how, but what knowledge is. In fact, some say there isn't even knowledge at all. And we say that, oh, but that will be a problematic position, logically speaking. If you say we cannot know at all, that itself constitutes knowledge. So you are just saying we know that we cannot know. Remember, so then it means it is not possible to subscribe to an absolute skeptic position. Skeptic is a doubter, someone who doubts the certainty of knowledge. Okay, but you can have at least variations of skepticism. We did all of that in level 100. Absolute skeptic, then the one that is a philosophical skeptic. He hasn't denied that we cannot know at all, except that we can know. But then he asks deeper questions about the supposed claims of knowledge that we make about the obvious. See that? So Descartes' methodology of trying to establish indubitable truth was a philosophical skeptic posture. He had a philosophical skeptic posture. He was drinking a wine in his glass, sitting by the fireplace when he was philosophizing. Okay, that means he accepts that he is holding a wine glass, but he was trying to ask a deeper question about whether we can know something for certain. It wasn't an absolute skeptic doubting that he engaged in. I'll ask you all these things. I'll ask you. That's why it's a lecture. Students are supposed to attend and hear the lecture. Okay. So what? So Descartes' doubting, that systematic doubt he engaged in that we will walk through some moments soon. That one wasn't absolute skepticism. It was what? A philosophical skepticism. That why? Because he admits certain truths. He's just asking a deeper underlying question of how we should accept the things that we know. If it turned out that he couldn't find anything that he knew for certain, he would have just admitted one thing, that at least he knows that he doesn't know anything. And that would still have constituted knowledge. He tells you himself that by the second day, he said, look, the second meditation, if I go through and search and I find nothing that I know for certain, that I can establish with indubitable, I can establish as indubitably true. If I do not get anything, at least I'll know one thing, which is that what I don't know anything. So he wasn't going to say that we cannot know anything at all. Cannot is a question of possibility. It can't happen. What knowledge? We cannot have it. That's the absolute skeptic's position. And the absolute skeptic position is inconsistent, we say, because your claim that we cannot know anything becomes the very evidence of what? Knowledge. So you shoot yourself in the foot if you were an absolute skeptic. The claim is that we cannot know. We will tell you that you just said that we know that we cannot know anything. Okay. So that's the first type of skepticism we saw in level 100. And the philosophical one, like Descartes' own, like any other philosophical question we ask, how do we know if so and so? What if society shouldn't be structured the way it is? How do we ensure a just society? These are all questions or posturing of doubt, seeking deeper answers. Okay. However, of like some very strange questions like, does God exist? Is there evil? If God exists and is good, why is there evil? You know, those questions are philosophical questions. They are raising doubts that are not just mere doubts, as in you are claiming that there is no truth. No, you just want a deeper answer that covers some things that you feel haven't been covered by the status quo. So that is what philosophical skepticism does. You intentionally take a posture of as if it is not there. If you say God doesn't exist, are you normal? You see that. What would be your grounds? There has to be a reason. So the person saying that or having that posture is actually trying to investigate something else, a deeper question. Okay, then there is the third one, which is the common sense skepticism. Every one of us, we don't need to go through any philosophical training to have some kind of doubt. Okay, so I mentioned the absolute skeptic, the philosophical skeptic, and then the commonsensical one. When you want to sit down, you hold a chair and fit it and make sure before you sit. When someone gives you water, especially if you see the environment the person is in, and brings you a cup of water and says drink, you see that you want to look inside it a little before you drink. When they give you a document, they say, sir, it might be coming from the holiest person you respect on it, but you want to look inside and make sure, am I signing the right thing? You see, it is just human nature to be skeptical, to be cautious, if you like, to be doubtful a little about people. Are you sure this are married to come on? When you ask that, you are just expressing a common sense skepticism. Hey, are you sure you can sponsor this thing? Because can you buy this phone? My talking to your roommate who is like, hey, your pocket money, the way is it? That doubt you are raising is regular, is normal with every human being. Common sense skepticism. Okay. So philosophical skepticism goes a little higher, questions the common sense assumptions we hold. And then the absolute skeptic in there, he was going to say there is nothing we can know for sure. We can't know at all. That one to be say, but that is not a defensible position. Okay. Now, if you recall that discussion we had, then here it tells us on our screen now that we already assume that there can be knowledge. There is knowledge because common sense skepticism, absolute skepticism does not hold water. Where it says we cannot know. So it means we can know something. Okay, if we can know, then what should we call knowledge? What is that? What does it mean to say we know? What is knowledge? That's the first interesting question of epistemology. After we threw out absolute skepticism, okay, what can we know, or what is knowledge itself? Then the next one that Gertrude read is what? How do we know? If we say we know at all and we know what knowledge is, how do we know? And then the last bit is how do we justify our claims of knowledge? If I say I know the lecture, she'll reopen the assessment. She'll reopen the assessment. I know. When you say you know, what is knowledge? Philosophers have hazarded what? A response to that. Then how do we know? Oh, I've sat in her class for a while. She will be hard, but she's not like that. So you are perhaps this person is referencing knowledge as what? Acquaintance when it comes to him or her about what? The experience. Others may see, oh, if you really reflect, just reason about it, just engage, you see, obviously, and so on. So how? How do we come to know? And then why should we believe what you say? You are saying something that you said is knowledge, and you got that thing from a so and so channel, your senses or your mind. Now, why should we believe you? How do you justify, ground it, give us reason to accept it? In other words, how do you offer justification? That is the most interesting central question of epistemology, the justification for our claims of knowledge. Otherwise, everybody will know something and claim that they got to know from so and so channel. But why should we then accept it? Okay. Those are the three questions. Now, if you got that, then we are ready to look at the offered responses to these key questions of epistemology. Well, it's a recall. I'm just helping you remember things that you have done already. Go ahead, sister. A question of knowledge, recall. Please read. Get to.
The question of knowledge. 1. What is knowledge? Is it justified, true, or belief? The statement, I know the lecture, means you believe it. It is true. That is, there is a lecture, and you can justify your true belief. That is support with evidence.
Let me explain that. So, what is knowledge? Traditionally, I mean, when you advance, you may want to critique this, but traditionally, it has been accepted as what? Justified, true belief. Knowledge that is true. When we say knowledge, it's a claim that is true. You believe it, and you have a justification for it. Then it constitutes what? Knowledge. So when we say knowledge, we know, we mean that it is a claim that is actually true. We believe it to be true, and then we can justify, we can offer grounds, reasons why we believe it to be true. So the statement, I know the lecture, means you believe it, you believe what you are saying. It is actually true that there is a lecture. You see that the claim of metaphysics again, finding its way into epistemology. If I know something, then perhaps I'm making a claim of the thing's existence. If it is not there, how do I know it? Okay, so see how I wrote that there is three that you can justify your true belief and support it with evidence. Go on, sister. You know all of these already, so just read them. I want you to get the key point. Quick, go.
How do we know? Traditional philosophy identifies two main sources of knowledge. A. Senses, that is, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling, collectively referred to as experience, that is, empirical source. So, philosophers who hold the view that experience is the true and ultimate source of all knowledge are described as empiricists. They include John Locke, David Hume, and Bishop Berkeley.
And I'm sure by now you know all of these people, at least from from our objective idealism versus subjective idealism. You would have encountered Locke in some form. You would have seen him also in our discussions in the 100 on the two main strands of epistemology, two main branches, empiricism, rationalism. When I talk about Descartes, I will always contrast him with an empiricist. If I talk about Plato, all of these people, you've met them, you'd see a contrast with Plato. So it is only David Hume that perhaps you haven't engaged his content. And if you get to level 300, second semester, there is that option to focus solely on empiricism. So you meet these three British empiricists, I suppose, if the lecture wants to. Level 300 first semester, there will be a rationalism elective, the rationalism, where you will discuss all the rationalists you are seeing now. So it's in your interest to engage them well and get at least a fair idea of what they are saying, where you place them. Then when you engage their content at that level, it will be merely what building on what you know. Sources of knowledge continued. Let you read, please. Get through.
Mind, not brain. Intellect, soul, spirit, etc. That is the non-physical part of a person, collectively labeled as reason, that is rational source. So, philosophers who hold the view that reason is the true and ultimate source of all knowledge are described as rationalists. They include Plato, René Descartes, Spinoza.
Well done. I like the way you're pronouncing their names. They're well read. Plato, Rene Descartes, Spinoza. Someone will say Plateau, Rene Descartes, and Socrates. Socrates is the correct pronunciation, though. So well done. Now we've seen the last. I didn't make any comment on that. So we can go to the the sixth slide, and I suspect another person will continue reading for us. Please go ahead, sister.
How do we justify our knowledge claims? This is the most central question of epistemology. How do we support, ground, or justify the claims of knowledge that we make? What will constitute a solid grounds for our claims of knowledge?
So it's the same thing
Well,
rephrased differently. If you are looking, you will see. I could ask you to state in a single statement only what justifies or the question of justification. In other words, what is the most central question of epistemology? I could ask you that. And any way you frame it alongside what we've done now, we'll be capturing the question of justification. How do we support, ground, or justify the claims of knowledge that we make? Or you could say, what will constitute a solid ground for our claims of knowledge? How do we determine the foundation, if you like, of our claims of knowledge? Now, take note, if we ask those, then we are seeking to clarify what the most central question of epistemology is. Second half, read it, please, Auntie.
Whereas rationalists rely on mind, that is not brain, as a solid justification, empiricists rely on experience, that is senses. The contention then is which of the sources gives the ultimate and true justification of our knowledge claims?
Very good. Now, at this level, you see that as I talk about the channels, the pathway, what I'm ending, I tell you, so the actual contention is what? Which of these two sources, origin, the source of it, which of these two sources gives us the ultimate and true justification of our knowledge claims? You will see the point of this, hopefully, maybe when you get to the third level with us, you will see that it doesn't mean that the empiricist thinks that the mind doesn't give us any kind of knowledge. See that we don't do analysis. Analysis doesn't depend on observation. It depends on what? Concepts and their relations. How you are relating to, if I say a bachelor has beaten his wife mercilessly to death, a bachelor has beaten his wife mercilessly to death. That is false. You don't say, oh, it's not false. Oh. The woman we are burying her today, it is false by the language. You see, the linguistic relations. When you relate bachelor and the fact that you say he has beaten his own wife, that cannot be true. Someone has been killed, yes. It was true beating, yes. The person that has been killed is a woman, yes. The one who killed him is a man, yes. But the statement a bachelor has beaten his own wife mercilessly to death cannot be true. You see the point? Because of the language of it. The language. So by this one, we are able to tell that what it is false already. We look at we relate the ideas. That's why Hume's language says relation of ideas. It's another word for analysis or analytic statement. Okay. Now, even the empiricists, like Hume, whom I referred to, accepts this kind of knowledge. He doesn't have to observe. Remember, he's empiricist. So if you don't have a clarity on what empiricism is, what rationalism is, you will think that by what Gertrude read right now on the screen, we are saying therefore that empiricists only accept something as true or false if you got the information via the senses. That is not the bone of contention. That is not the issue. The issue is where the ideas were originally sourced from. So if I experience and I stored it there, this is what the empiricists say. I sourced the idea of bachelor, the idea of marriage, the idea of debt, etc. that we just put together to create the statement. If I already sourced it from experience and stored it in my mind, then I am now applying it. It still makes me empiricist. The only thing is that at the time I have to do an analysis of this statement, I don't have to go and observe. It is still analytic. Okay? But the ideas were originally sourced from experience. That's why he's still empiricist. Not that it means that if I'm empiricist, I don't use my mind. I don't do analysis. Everything I have to see. So 2 plus 3, if I don't see 2 oranges and three bananas put together, I will say 2 plus 3 is fine. No, that's not what empiricism means. Simply put, empiricists also accept analytic truth. Analytic truths don't depend on experience. In other words, when you are doing the analysis, you don't have to go and observe before. All right? They don't depend on it. So why is the person empiricist and can still accommodate analytic truth? Well, what makes him empiricist is that his claim is the analytic truths that don't depend on experience are working with ideas. Those ideas of what? Plus, like 2 plus 3 equals 5, that we see. The idea of plus, the idea of 2, the idea of equal to are sourced originally from experience and stored in the memory, in the intellect. So when I am using it later as an empiricist, I'm not taking anything which is outside of the empirical. It was still put there originally by what? The senses. That is why I am still empiricist. And I need you to remember that always. So you can contrast empiricism with rationalism with clarity. They agree that linguistic truths don't depend on observation. But I am still an empiricist, even if I accept analytic truth. Why? Because what is making me empiricist, I'm saying that the ideas that I'm relating to my analysis were originally sourced from experience and stored into my memory. I'm just using it to work now. Doesn't mean it didn't come by the senses. Okay. Remember that a certain quote by an empiricist that says, there is nothing in the intellect that was not originally in the senses. There's nothing in the intellect that was not originally in the senses. So originally it was in the senses. Then the senses picked and put it into what? The intellect. And then later on, intellect can use it to do analysis. And then it's as if there was no play of the senses in it. Therefore, someone can be what? An empiricist and yet accept that we can have certain truths that do not depend on we experiencing, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, or smelling. But then it was already put there. The ideas have already been stored into the intellect by what experience. Okay, if you got that clarity, apply same to rationalism and you do good. So the sister has read and she tells us that the sources that give the ultimate and true justification of our knowledge claim for empiricists is what? The senses. Now I can take another reader. Thank you, Gertrude. Let's take Francis Ano. Francis, go ahead. Your hand is up.
Okay, Doc. Some important terminologies.
Take note of what your friend is going to read. I'll ask you questions on this and every other thing we've done in the exam. So take note, make your notes. Please go on.
Some important terminologies. Analytic, that is relations of ideas. A statement whose predicate is already contained in the subject. It is a logical or linguistic truth, so non-informative. Necessary truth, true by definition, logical structure, meanings. Tautologies or hello,
Redundancies.
redundancies. Sorry.
No problem.
Example. All backing dogs back. A is A. A square is dog I can't see it for.
Four-sided.
Four-sided.
Yeah. Very good. So let me explain. Like I was saying on the previous slide, when we say a statement is analytic, it's important for you to understand that terminology. So you can see the trust of the problem we are dealing with. See, we are dealing with problems of philosophy. So I'm introducing you to problems that we have or the philosophers have engaged and continue to engage. And we have seen a number of them already. So today's own is the problem of certainty. And what is the problem? I gave you a focus, understanding or detecting or questioning whether there can be a synthetic truth that is known with a priori certainty. So to understand that problem, we have done some background work to clarify what the questioning of knowledge is, what its focus is, how we acquire knowledge, how we justify claims of knowledge. We've done all of that. I want to see the terminology, the important terms that we are using in this problem. One of the terms is what? The word analytic. When we describe a statement as analytic, in Hume's language, David Hume's language, he says relations of ideas. You relate them, you compare, you connect the ideas, okay, to be able to tell whether it is true or false. You don't go outside of the very language. You use the language. So if I say a bachelor has beaten his wife, like I was saying previously, the bachelor has beaten his own wife, we will just relate the ideas and tell you that if the person is a bachelor, he cannot beat his wife. So speak well, because what you are saying is already contradictory. How did we arrive at that? By the meanings of the terms, by the definitions of terms, by relating the ideas within the statement itself. We don't have to go and observe. But if I say Ghana gained independence in 1957, it's a question of observation. What I heard, whether I was born then, or I heard it, or I read it, or I was told, the channel that gave me that information is not a question of what relating the ideas. It is actually observation. Okay, we'll get there shortly. But right now, this analytic statement, the statement we describe as analytic, is purely language based. So if I say A is A, look at the example down there that Francis read. If I say A is A, I have not informed you. I didn't add anything new. Look at the subject. The subject is A, and then I said is A. So when you hear A is something, you feel that I'm going to, like, look at, if I say Kofi is a teacher. Kofi is a subject. Is a teacher is a predicate. I gave you some information about Kofi. If I say Kofi is a teacher, I'm telling you something, an attribute that will add to what you know about Kofi. Kofi is a teacher. It's informative. I'm telling you something. That one is synthetic statement. We'll get there shortly. It will help you see the analytic. That's how I brought it to you. Okay. But if I say you, Kofi is Kofi, what did I add to the subject Kofi? Nothing. It's repetitive. It's tautologous. It's redundant. Redundant means it's not adding. The predicate is not adding anything. You are in the company. You are not adding anything. When you come to work, it doesn't add anything to us. When you are not at work, it doesn't subtract anything. What are you doing? That kind of language. I repeated the same thing in a more familiar grammar. Okay. So that's when those people, they are laid off the company. They say redundancy. Let's say you work at a factory. When you come in and there is enough vibrant economy, then there is a reason for people to buy plantain chips and cook, for example, and drink. But the system is so strong and tight, who is going to use their 20 cedis to buy 1 liter or 1.5 with a 2 liters cook? I've forgotten which one is that. And chips. When that same money can buy cassava and plantain with Kobe and do soup, to give us more nutrient and heavy. You see that? So the people who come to the factory, the workers may come and they may be laid off because people are not buying the thing if the economy is free. So when you come to work, you don't add to productivity. And when you don't come, it doesn't take anything from productivity because there's an expression for that. Market is not booming. Nothing they go on. That's what my brothers say. Yeah? So you will be laid off. Why? Because redundancy, actually, you are redundant. When a statement is analytic, it means the predicate. Now you know subject and predicate. If you forgot, I just reminded you. The subject of that statement didn't get any addition from the predicate. The predicate didn't add anything new. Look at the example one. All barking dogs bark. But you are telling me the thing is a barking dog. If it's a barking dog, it will bark. That's how I describe it. Okay, all flying spoons fly. If you say it is a flying spoon, then what should it do? If you tell me it flies, you added nothing new. It's a redundancy. It's analytically true, a tautology. If I say a square is four-sided, what's the meaning of square? Square is what we mean when we say four-sided. A triangle has 3 sides. You haven't said anything. It's a redundancy. It's just like stating the law of identity. A is A. You added nothing. So look at the description in the deep blue. Look at this one. Refer to this. Analytic statement where we only relate the ideas to tell the truth or falsity. I told you already that both empiricists and rationalists don't disagree on what the analyticity of statement. If it is an analytic statement, we can tell. We don't need to. If I'm Hume or Berkeley or Locke, strictly empiricist. I don't have to tell you that. Well, I want to go and see the woman that you said was beaten before I can tell that the statement a bachelor has beaten his own wife to death is false. He doesn't have to go and see. It is in the language. Even as an empiricist, I can tell. So I don't say that because the person is empiricist, it merely means that for him or her to ascertain truth. He has to go and observe. That is not what makes someone empirical. Okay, I have said that over and over and over again. It will help you if you have to do empiricism maybe next year. Then get that also for rationalism. So then what? So by just relating the ideas, you're able to tell the truth or falsity independently. Hold on, that is where the contention is. Does it then come to us independently of experience? Empiricist thing? No, it is still an experiential truth that I arrive at. I didn't go to observe, but the raw material I'm working with, using to relate to the idea, that raw material is what? Sourced originally from the empirical. So I have it already in my faculty. Then I will reflect. If you read Locke, you'll see in empiricism, you say it's what sensation and reflection are a twin part of what our impressions or something like that. You read it there. So you sense, receive it, then your intellect uses what has been stored there by our senses already to reflect on it. So you know bachelor, you know married, you know beating. So you put them together, relate it, and give a response there and then. That is false. Without having to go to the grounds or the room where the beating has gone on to go and see before. Okay. All right. If you got that, it means how should you understand analytic statements? They are non-informative. They don't give information. I've explained why. They don't add or subtract anything. It's just a repetition of what the subject in the predicate. They are non-informative. They have necessity attached to them. It's either necessarily true or necessarily false. It's necessary here means it doesn't change status. If it is true always true, tautology. Or if it is false, it's always false, contradiction. Remember all this. It is true or false by definition. It's a definition. Because you are working with meanings. Look at it. It's the logical structure. If I told you, and I use those examples a lot too, I'm sure you would have heard it from me. The cup on the table is read all over. Remember our elements of formal logic. You know, we will do ours next semester. I'm talking about those who are level 300 now. Okay, so the cup sitting on the table is red all over and green all over at the same time and in the same respect. The cup on the table is red all over and green all over at the same time and in the same respect. How can this ever be true? You see, that is not directly a definition, but by looking at the logical structure, how can one cup be red all over and green all over at the same time and in the same respect? That can't happen. Not in this world, not in the world to come, not in any possible world. Okay? Why? It is in the language. If it is red all over, it cannot at the same time be green all over at the same time and in the same respect. You can say that it is raining in the spirit. So we are sitting here and the sun is shining physically, but you can say, I see showers of rain. You're talking about rain in a different respect, not physical rain. So that statement cannot be true. It will always be false. We don't care whether in heaven or hell or in between. It cannot be true by the language we are using. Okay, that's why we think of analytic statements as either always true or always false. They are meanings oriented, they are tautologies or redundancies, they are non-informative, they are necessarily true or necessarily for this necessity associated with them. And you can use the logical structure to understand. I showed you a contrast already when I said, but if I say Kofi is a boy, what I mean by Kofi is not the same as what I mean by being a boy, because Kwame too is a boy. So I'm adding. If that doesn't help you, look at Kofi is a teacher. I'm a teacher. I'm a mother too. I do other things. So it is some extra information you just got. The meaning of Kofi is not the same as the meaning of a teacher. Therefore, Kofi is a teacher. It's a synthetic statement. The predicate is not repeating the subject. That's what you see on the screen. So examples like Barca will win the match. It will rain tomorrow. Dogs bark. The earlier one said, all barking dogs bark. That is a tautology. If I say dogs bark, I added some information about what dogs are. But dogs also have long canine teeth or something. What's the name of that? Dogs have tail. There's so much I can say about dogs. So dogs bark. What I mean by dog, sorry, it's not the same as what I mean by bark. Barking is adding to the subject dogs. This is a synthetic statement. A is B, synthetic. Barca will win the match, synthetic. It will rain tomorrow, synthetic. Why? It is not a definition. We can use meanings of terms to analyze this. You see that, and so on and so forth. Now note, the predicate amplifies the subject. It doesn't just repeat it. That's a straightforward one. If you got that, then you will see why in the debate between rationalists and empiricists, generally, the assumption has been made that if knowledge is acquired prior to experience, that's independently of experience, then it is a rationalist position. Whilst empiricists think if knowledge is acquired, it is acquired only after experience. So they think of that as what? A posteriori. Now you will see that if it is a posteriori, there is contingent. That is how it has been described. I'm showing you what the debate has been and then what the reconciliation position is. A priori, prior to experience. A posteriori, dependent on experience. These ones are talking about how knowledge is acquired. Remember the three questions we asked up there. What knowledge is, how it is acquired, how it is justified. Don't forget, that's the outline. Okay. Rationalist thinks it is acquired a priori, independently of experience. At least some knowledge. Empiricists think, no. Every knowledge is acquired after experience. There's nothing in the mind that was not put there by the senses, says empiricists. Any questions? Or let me finish this quickly, then I can take questions. Okay. So tentative, please, can you keep your thing muted? Keep it muted. I just muted you. Why have you muted? Tentative conclusion. It will seem then that all that it will seem is just a seeming conclusion. Seem. Okay, when you read Kant, you see how he merges the two. It will seem then that all analytic truths are known a priori and all synthetic truths are known a posteriori. That is what it would seem. If I say it is raining at Legon, we have all agreed that's a synthetic statement. How do we establish the truth or falsity of that statement? We will say, we'll go to Legon and go and observe. Either you see it yourself or you call someone at Legon and ask, is it raining there? But however you do, or you go outside of your room and feel the rain touch your skin. So it seems then as if a statement is synthetic, then we know it necessarily by what? A posteriori, after we experience, then we know. Because then we are able to add information to the subject. Whilst others think if a statement is analytic, then it means we know it independently of experience, a priori. Can you see that? Because then the empiricists didn't have to go and see. Remember the example I gave, the supposed wife of a bachelor who had been beaten. He doesn't have to go and see. He can just draw the conclusion prior to experience. So then it seems that all analytic truths are known a priori and all synthetic truths are known a posteriori. Now, say Francis, please go ahead, read this. But that assumption may not be wholly correct. And so we want to see where the problem comes in. Read it.
Problem of certainty. Is there truth about experience that is synthetic truth, which is known with certainty independently of experience, that is a priori? Are there synthetic truths which are known with a priori certainty? Rationalist, yes. empiricist? No.
Very good. So this is where the problem is. We would have had no issues if we all said, okay, from all the discussions we've had so far, the statement is analytic, then it will be known without having to go and observe. So apart from experience, in other words, it will be known a priori, analytic statement. Then if a statement is synthetic, in other words, the one that amplifies the subject, that kind of statement, which is not a definition, not true or false, biological structure, etc., the ones we just saw. If a statement is synthetic, then we would have thought that we will know its truth or falsity via what? Experience. In other words, a posteriori. Then there would have been no trouble for anyone. But the contention here is that a case is being made for the possibility of what? Certainty. Remember, necessity attached to linguistic or analytic truth. We said always true or always false. There's necessity attached to analytic. Now here we are being told that there can be truth, that is truth about experience. If you want to say synthetic, it also means truth about actual experience. It's not a language statement. It is a truth that is actually out there, not something that you establish because of the language of it. Or a chichi is a chichi is a chichi. If I say chichi is a chichi, it will be an analytic statement, but we don't know what chichi is. See, so it's not really talking to actual existence. Now I'm coming back to state the fact. If you now say that we can have a synthetic truth, yet known with a priori certainty, then the empiricist says, what the hell? How can that happen? The thing is a statement about experience, or better still, it's a synthetic statement. It is informing us. You say we got to know that prior to experience, and we know that with certainty. How did we get to know? Rationalists say, yes, there can be that kind of truth. I say, excuse me, are you dreaming, guys? They say, no, we can have such truth. How did we get to know? And you say with a priori certainty. Plato, for example, says, yes. Descartes says, yes. When you study Leibniz, he says, yes. Hey, then the empiricists like Hume, Berkeley, and Locke say, no. If it is synthetic paradia, then it cannot have a priori certainty. I just hope you got that. Francis, read the last slide, then you can also rest. We call the next person. Actual disagreement between rationalists and empiricists then is what? Please read.
Actual disagreement between rationalists and empiricists. Whether they can be detected a priori truth, that is, whether they can be truth about experience known independently of experience.
Good.
Examples: universal truth, such as the principle of causality, that is, every event must have a cause. To logical truth, such as the law of identity. A is A. 3. Metaphysical truth, such as God exists. Ethical truths, such as is it wrong to kill human beings indiscriminately?
It is wrong to kill human beings indiscriminately.
It is wrong,
It
sorry.
is actually a statement, yeah. All right, well read. Thank you very much. So these kinds, I don't know why I didn't highlight ethical truth. So you can do so in your own slide. Universal truths, such as what? The universal truths are sometimes categorized as metaphysical truths. We place them under metaphysics. Okay. So you see logical truths, metaphysical truths, ethical truths, or ethical statements, metaphysical statements, logical statements, such as these ones you see on the screen, have been identified by certain rationalists, depending on which rationalist you are reading. So the emphasis will be on a particular one for a particular rationalist. And that is when you engage rationalism proper, you're able to delve into that. That's not our concern here. The point is that these kinds of truths have been identified by certain scholars that we do not get this information from our experience. Now, you know what experience is, the five senses. We don't get it from that. We know it a priori, prior to experience at all. We know. So we don't care what experience is telling us. We already know that everything that happens must have been caused, the principle of causality. There can't be anything that was not brought about by something. So whatever happens is as a result of something bringing it about. This is the point. And rationalists will say this kind of truth, not all truths, not all knowledge, not all statements or propositions are synthetic a priori truths. Not all synthetic statements can be known with a priori certainty. No, not all of them. But there are specific ones. Take note, that is the rationalist view at different, with different variations. No rationalist would confidently say that all knowledge, including the hairstyle you put on next week, that one too, we know it a priori. No, I don't think so. But there are certain truths, such as the ones we have listed. Our elders say so. No one teaches the child who God is. In other words, the concept of God, for such a tradition, the concept of God is not taught. No one teaches the person just knows. So if depending on which rationalist you are reading, like Plato, I'll walk you through it briefly. You will see that Plato, for example, appealed to what innate ideas. He will say, we know it already because it is part of our nature as rational beings to have the idea of God already imprinted in us, the idea of causality, the idea of ethics, ethical statements like you do not kill people indiscriminately, human beings. Don't say that the society says so, or I was sanctioned by my military dictator, or because of the way the people behave, which we are going to protect ourselves. So because of that, we are throwing bombs. The folks that believe in such innate ideas say that we know such truths innately. That is Plato, not necessarily Descartes, even though they are both rationalists. Descartes talked about his own existence as what? Established with certainty, without the help of the senses. And I'll remind you again from level 100 after these few slides. Okay, so these people, these rationalist thinkers are saying there are certain truths we know prior to experience, and some of them are the ones you see on the screen. These truths are not definitions. If I say God exists, I'm not defining God. You see that? It is a synthetic statement. It's not a definition. It's not true or false biological structure, is it? No. So it's not an analytic statement. Yet, authors that are labeled as rationalists, like Plato and Descartes, Leibniz, Spinoza, that I've mentioned, okay, they will tell you that I know such a truth. You also know it. But I like to speak with a specific philosopher so that I don't get us confused. So like Plato will say that you and every rational human being, including children, and you see the problem that we wage for him, know this. Someone says, but there are atheists. He said, well, yes. When the drunkard also falls into a gutter, he tells you he has never drank alcohol before. At the time he's so drunk inside the gutter, you tell him, I said, I've never drank alcohol. Meanwhile, he has drunk it and he's inside the gutter. When you catch a thief red and say, I've never stolen before. So Locke's point is the fact that someone is saying God doesn't exist doesn't mean he doesn't know that God exists. All right, so we can delve into those details when you come to rationalism, but these are supposed to be some instances of truths, in other words, statements that are synthetic in nature, yet they are known with what a priori certainty, according to rationalists. And then empiricists will say, well, all these are truths. We know them with some necessity, perhaps. I say with some necessity. We know them. They are synthetic, but they are not known a priori. They are known a posteriori, and they don't have any necessity with them. They are contingent, says which people, the empiricists. That is the bone of contention that your friend read nicely. So I put here rationalist argument for synthetic a priori knowledge, which I've touched on briefly. The class should discuss Plato's innate ideas. The class should discuss Descartes' intuition of mind and deduction of God and matter. And if they did that, they would be so okay. Now, I want to help you with that also. I'll take your questions first, then we'll look at Descartes quickly. We'll do some slides on him and then some few slides on Plato, just to give you, to buttress the point, and then we should be so done. Keep your hands up if you have questions. If it's not a question, kindly drop your hand. I want to clear the questions and then we can move on to the next slide. Very good. I still see 6 hands. Are they all questions? I see 5 now. Are they all questions? Keep your hands. Why don't you like obeying simple instructions? There are 4 hands now. Are there questions? Because I'm looking at the hands up to allocate time and give you time to ask your question. I see 6 hands. If there are more, keep them up. If you have questions, keep them up, please. All right, so let's take them one after the other. I'll call Loretta first. I don't know if it's Loretta or Loretta, so take it up, Ali. You are all muted, so you may want to unmute first. The hand now went down. Let's take Ernest Kobina. Ernest Kobina Beidu. Go ahead, Ernest. Ernest Kobina Beidu, is there a question? I've asked that all the hands that are not questions should kindly go down. So I don't call you, then you drop your hand. Okay, let's take Tyra or Hene Nyako. Tyra Nyako. Go ahead.
Hello, good morning, Madam.
Good morning.
Please, my question is that in our previous lectures, we learned that John Locke is an objective idealist and George Berkeley is a subjective idealist. So I want to know how come John Locke is now an empiricist and not a rationalist.
Hey, Auntie Adjo. Hey, I want someone to. Thank you, Tyra. Ernest Kobina, you want to help Tyra?
Yeah.
Tyra, listen to your colleague. Thank you.
Okay. John Locke, he thinks that we have primary and then secondary qualities of a thing. He thinks that the two, but Berkeley thinks of only the secondary. He thinks that we should have both secondary and then the primary. Did you get it?
I am listening. I think her question is, thank you. I think her question is confusing the question of metaphysics with the question of epistemology. And I addressed that, so I really wouldn't have wanted to respond to it. If you go to your slides and the video lecture that you guys luckily have it recorded and freely accessible to you, and you should engage. I keep telling the class, you realize that I told you that you can have a rationalist who is what? Idealist. And then at the same time, an empiricist who is idealist. Then you can have a rationalist who is not idealist. And then an empiricist who is not idealist. Why? Because rationalist empiricists are dealing with the question of knowledge, epistemology, knowing how we know. Whilst idealism and, if you like, materialism are dealing with what? What there is, metaphysics. What is there?
What there is.
So I can be an empiricist. That means when it comes to the question of knowledge, I believe that the source is what? The senses. That's what it has made me empiricist. But when you ask me what exists, I will tell you that I sourced it from experience, but what exists is non-physical mind. Tyra, are you listening? Yes. Then at the same time, you can have another empiricist who will say, yes, I source what I know from experience, but what exists is material. It is not mind. It's not a non-physical thing.
Yeah.
So I can be empiricist or rationalist. And that only is describing how I come to know the question of knowledge. Whether from my empiricist epistemological position, I agree that reality is mind or matter. It's neither here nor there. So simply put, I've said that in the slides, ditto with pictures of Plato. I think I put Plato, Locke, and Berkeley, if I recall, to show you that even though Plato is typically rationalist in his epistemological position, you see him as rationalist. When it comes to his metaphysics, you can label him as what? An idealist, because what he thinks ultimately exists is non-physical. The world of reality is not a physical world. It's non-physical. Mind here means, I keep saying, it's not brain. Mind is what? A non-physical. Think of mind as spirit, spiritual. And Plato believes that ultimate reality is not physical. So that which is real is not the physical. Now we have someone like John Locke, who is empiricist. So who is this? We have someone like John Locke, who is empiricist, or even John Locke's his idealism is not a consistent one. So let's put him down and take Berkeley. We have Berkeley, who is typically empiricist, yet he is a consistent idealist. Idealist meaning that when you ask him what really exists, he will say it's non-physical. What really exists is not a physical thing. How do we know it? He says we know it through the senses. Okay, Tyra. So we know it through the senses is what makes him empiricist. But what it is that really exists, he will say it's a non-physical. The mind is non-physical, non-corporeal, non-tangible. You can't touch it. It doesn't occupy space. It is not within time. Those stuff like that. He is empiricist, Berkeley. He's empiricist. When you ask him, how do you know the thing? He will say, I knew it through the senses. But if you ask him, what is this thing that you know to be really there? He will say it's non-physical. So empiricist, yet idealist. That's what Berkeley. Then Plato, rationalist. That means when you ask him, how do we know? You say, I know through the pure activity of mind, non-physical. What is the reality? The real thing that exists is non-physical. That's Plato. So he and Berkeley will agree when it comes to what? The object of reality. What is that thing that is really there? They will agree. But when you ask him, how do we know it? One will go to rationality, the other will go to empiricism. Then when you bring Locke and Berkeley together, they are both empiricists, we say. When you ask them what really exists, they both try to make a case of idealism, but we think one doesn't have a very consistent position. Then we can have Plato, Berkeley and what? Maybe like Descartes, and so on and so forth. So the answer is Locke here, as we are engaging him, is empiricist. Yes, when it comes to knowledge, how we know, he will say it is sourced from experience, from the senses. But if you ask him what really exists, he says that, oh, when it comes to, and that is where Ernest's intervention was helpful. We say what really exists found there is the ideas we have. But the ideas, it is the subjective ideas that are ours. But the objective ones, they are there. So what are you idealists? You are trying to be idealist, but you are also trying to meet the materialist halfway by saying that when it comes to primary qualities and what have you, that one, it can be there even if we don't see. So are you saying that reality is the ideas we have, or that reality can be partly what we know and partly what is out there? That is the challenge we had with John Locke. That one was dealing with his metaphysics, the question of what there is. So, but how we know he's consistently an empiricist, like his friend Buckley. I just hope that helped Tara. Tara, is it okay?
Yes, madam. Thank you.
Okay, go and revise your material, and you will help a lot of people because I think a lot of people assume that. So if you revise the slides, then it will help you. Let's take Hannah. Hannah, go ahead. You're muted, Hannah. Tara, please drop your hand now so I can see. It's left with Teresa and Obed. If Hannah is not able to, let's take Obed. Obed, that's someone. Go ahead. Yeah. Obed, is there a question you have? Please go ahead. Okay, if it's not a question, let's take Teresa Taco. Teresa, go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead. We are recording also. Go ahead.
Cited an example that I wanted to. I didn't get that part. Whether
could you come closer to your gadget? You seem a distance away from whatever gadget you are using. Come closer, please. Sit or stand by the gadget so we can hear you. Are you using an earphone? Or, come closer a little bit more. Increase the volume.
Please, madam, can you hear me now?
Yes, you should sit like the way you sat now. It's a serious class. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask a question about the analytic and the synthetic statement.
Ask the question. That is why I'm asking.
You cited an example that Kofi is a boy, and I didn't get that part, whether it falls under the analytic.
Were you sitting through to the end of the lecture, or you were sitting somewhere? You just joined us.
No, please, madam, I was with you.
What I'm saying is, if you were sitting to, what did you hear me say that I didn't understand? I want to help you from where I was standing. Because we are already recording. If you play back, you hear everything again.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question on it, but I didn't get that part, whether it belongs to the analytic or the synthetic.
Which one? Which one doesn't belong to? Then could you just say that, Doc, did you say Kofi is a boy, is analytic or synthetic? Let's say that, so it will be interrogated. Then I can give you a response. You see that?
Oh, okay,
you want to know if Kofi is a boy, the statement Kofi is a boy is analytic or synthetic. Is that what you are asking?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Anybody who wants to answer that should do that. Keep your hand up if you can help your friend. Your friend says synthetic, and it wasn't ambiguous at all. If you were listening, you hear it, unless you had a network issue. Okay, I need students to respectfully sit by the machine as if we were at the lecture hall. It is for you. It will count. You will see. When we finish everything to show. It's like the way we charge our phone. When you plug it, the phone doesn't talk. It doesn't say anything, but some power is going in. See, so when you sit down, you give the content all the seriousness, all the attention. Like currently, there are about 220 something students here for a class close to 600. It might be that, oh, I don't have data this morning or something, but you would have had Laurie Fair to come to the physical lecture. Don't give yourself excuses. You see, maybe some will even later on playback because I record. I will put it down, say you didn't come, so I don't have that time. I'm here to deliver content to students. But some, even after this, they won't go and play it. You won't listen. When you finish, you want to get an A. How? When you don't plant, you don't reap. I'm speaking to the class now. You have to plant. When you plant corn, you reap corn. When you plant pepper, you reap pepper. Get that principle. There is no shortcut anywhere. Seed time and harvest time will never cease. I'm telling you, so plant well. Tell yourself that. You don't need to be supervised. No one has to be there to tell me, get up. It's a class. Why are you talking? No. Tell yourself that I want to plant well. And you reap, okay? So it has been addressed and repeated again. If I say Kofi is a boy, it was even on the screen as well. It is a synthetic statement. There is a boy, it's adding, giving you some information that will make the subject Kofi meaningful. Unlike if I had said Kofi is Kofi, or if I said all barking dogs back. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, madam, please. Hello, madam, please, can I talk?
Go ahead, Obed.
For instance, for Ghana here, when you say Kofi, we know that Kofi.
Me, my name is Kwame Joe. Me, your lecturer speaking to you. Me.
Okay,
madam. With 4 children, by the grace of God, push them out of my wherever myself. So I'm a woman, fully. My name.
Okay, madam, I
get Kwame Joe. It means this. We are talking to. He is a teacher. So, what about if my name is Nancy Kofi? Even if it's not my first name, I'm called Nancy Kofi. When you hear Kofi Bia, you should think it's a boy. That's the problem with the way we think. That by the grace of God, critical thinking is helping us polish. philosophy is helping us enlighten ourselves. You don't hear a name and say this person comes from so and so. It can be from Togo, but it's also called Kofi. All right, thank you very much. I think I get your drift now. Amy Sir Esla, ask your question, please. Or you wanted to help
sorry,
Obed? Yes, I think you wanted to help.
I wanted to.
All right, thank you very
Yes,
much. So
please.
let me quickly walk you all quickly, very quickly through the preview. These ones are your old slides. I put them there to help you. So you see that I still justified true belief, offended. The question of epistemology. So all those contents are there. I just want you to remember your Descartes, because you cannot swear those names if you want to continue in some kind of epistemology. How do you know? You see, this one is the same thing that we read, the same as we read earlier. How do we justify claims of knowledge? See, the same content. Why am I bringing it? I wanted us to quickly walk through Descartes' meditations 1 and 2 that I did in the 100. Some of you was online, so some of the times it was like, oh, Charlie, this one there, be there. It's nothing. It won't go away. You must know Descartes. You must know Plato. Even for second semester and level 300. When you get to level 400, you will need it. You never know. You may have to continue in this department with us and beg us really to remain. If it happens, then you will now have to come and remember. Maybe in your mind, oh, I'll do this other course as my major or something. So I don't want to bother myself. You never know. Remember us. You may never know what your decision will be in future. So there are certain core foundational content you must have. And if you did it earlier and did it in a shoddy way, you have to remember you will need it. What question was Descartes seeking a response to in his meditations 1 and 2? He just wanted to know, is there any knowledge that is certain, that is indubitable, or that cannot be doubted? That was what Descartes was looking for. We remember what he did. He set off in what? An intentional doubt. First, with the senses. He was looking for certainty in the science. Sciences here referring to what? Empirical science. Certainty. So he tried to see if our senses, all the 5 of them, can give us any kind of certainty at all. Certainty means truth that cannot be doubted. If you intentionally decided to doubt it, will you be able to doubt at all? Why? Because he was looking for what? Indubitable truth. He does that by first doubting the eye. Remember the mirage you are driving, you see the tongue's deception. The same sweet taste you feel when you eat the yogurt now, you don't feel the same because you are maybe pregnant or have malaria, something like that. So you don't enjoy it. Is it the thing that tastes good, or it is your taste that has changed? Now that you've done some Berkeley, what's the other guy, Locke on primary and secondary qualities, I think these things even settles in better for you. Then theories that have turned out to be false, scientific theories, geocentric view to heliocentric view, for example, typically a disappointment, if you like, quote unquote, from science. So your empirical statements, the supposed truth that have come to you empirically, Descartes says they could all be doubted. If so, then what can we trust? So he sets up, to intentionally doubt in the bid to find just one truth that he can know for certain. Then he would use that as his foundation, as the grounds on which to build his entire epistemology. That's why we describe the method that Descartes used as what? A foundationalist method. He's looking for one truth that is certain, only as a foundation. He's not saying every truth should be certain. Certainty should apply to everything we know. Certainty, there shouldn't be any that. No, that wasn't his quest. He was looking for only one. So that whatever he finds as true will be the foundation on which to build all other truth. Okay. We're looking for only one person to save us. One person. Then if his is okay, then we all can be engrafted into him. That is the same thing that Descartes used. So his method is a geometrical method. You see, when you want to draw a circle with a compass, you fix the point at one place, and then you move, and then You move the pencil around and you are confident. Oh dear, tell them that I'm doing a live session. If they can wait for just some 15 minutes, I'll be done. But beg them back. So that if you are able to move your pencil round, compass, you are confident that the radius will be the same for all the various angles you move. Okay, from all the angles, from the fixed point all around, you will have a fixed radius. Now that is the thinking. If I get one fixed position, Archimedes principle, I can move around. So Descartes was looking for a fixed certainty based on which he can revolve and be confident that he will not stray away from rationality. If you got that, you see why we described, you have to forgive me. We are telling them to stop. I think some workers have come to the department to do something. And so the drilling is getting into our recording. Now, so Descartes' method is a foundationalism. It's described as foundationalist, and it is also described as a geometric method. Don't forget that. Then these ones we've seen already. The limitation of the senses argument. He sets off by doubting the senses. We said that already. When it comes to objects that are far and distant. But the question is, what if the object is so close? How will I doubt it? That I'm sitting in front of my laptop now in my office. I can see writings on the screen. I can hear myself talking. That one too. So close, like it's not far away. So that I'll say that, oh, maybe the building, if I had gone closer, I'll see it to be square. But now it's rectangular. That is when it's far away. But this is very close. If it's this close, can I doubt it? No. I'll go 15 minutes. I can make 5 minutes. My wrap up. And my wrap up. It's like a recording. I mean, no. I'll need to wrap up because I think the gentleman will go. We have issues in the department. Okay. So the dream argument then comes in to doubt the objects that are so close to us. Okay. Remember that it is an intentional doubt. Then he goes further now to use the evil demon argument to doubt not sensory knowledge, but what? A priori, the supposed a priori knowledge that doesn't depend on experience. He still uses that. Now you have to revise that very well until he came to the certainty that his own existence there, he cannot doubt it. Why? Because he has to exist even to doubt that what he exists. For me to doubt, that's Descartes speaking now. I try to doubt even my own existence as Descartes. As for the body, his body has already doubted it. But the thing that is doing the reflection, mind, he cannot doubt it. Why? Because for him to even doubt that he exists, he should doubt. I have to exist to doubt that I exist. If I don't exist, what thing will be doing the doubting? See, so then he establishes certainty at last. Therefore, Descartes has established the truth of something that didn't depend on observation. And so he is a rationalist. And if I say I am Descartes and I say I exist, that is not a definition. I and exist are not the same. I'm not speaking a redundancy. It's a synthetic statement, but I know that with a priori certainty. That is why Descartes is a rationalist and is able to tell his colleagues that there are certain truths, like this particular one, we can know without the activity of what? The senses. I could have included the rest, but I think that we can do that in rationalism together. It was just extra information to beef up what we have done. I gave you a gist on Plato too, and how he grounds his innateness on what? Synthetic, his innate, I'm totally lost. Listen, his innate knowledge thesis, he uses that to ground what? Synthetic a priori truth. He says that we can have synthetic truth that are known with a priori certainty. Okay, I want to stop the recording. We can engage the chat without worrying about the noise. Okay, so let's stop the recording for the sake of those who play it back later, and now take your questions. You may lift your hand. Then please tell them they can work. Look at it.